Fanfest just wrapped up this weekend, and as always it served as the cornerstone of EVE Online's upcoming expansion, in this case launching on June 9th, Cradle of War. If you've been paying attention to developer news and updates since the launch of the Catalyst expansion, then quite a few of the expansion's changes are probably going to be no surprise. In fact, quite a few of these were already in my video on how EVE Online will be changing in 2026, but let's dive in and take a look at what we can expect this summer in greater detail. First of all, Fenris Creations will be consolidating the Empire versus Empire conflicts of New Eden into a new unified experience and user interface window called Theatres of War. While that will include both regular and pirate faction warfare information that's already present in the game, it's also going to be the destination for the brand new military campaigns. These campaigns were heavily teased over the last few months, but it's great that we now have a much better idea of the actual implementation. As expected, these are essentially giving each empire a set of goals focused on advancing their conquest against their galactic enemy, but honestly what I didn't expect was quite such novel outcomes for each of the campaigns, which I'm also pretty surprised we've been told in advance. First up, the Amar Empire's campaign, The Blessed Exchange, will involve setting up the Deaconry of Economic Oversight Office with the ultimate goal of reducing taxes in the Empire, potentially giving Amar greater impact as an alternative trade hub and reducing Jita's dominance in that space. Secondly, we have the Kaldari State Corridor Initiative, which will culminate in a Stargate connection between Blackrise and Syndicate. I know it's always quite challenging to work out how these connections and change in routes will affect the game long term. We've seen it many times with Pochvan, Thera, Zarzak, but I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments on what kind of impact you think this will have on New Eden. Thirdly, the Minmatar Starkmanir restoration, which is of particular interest to me because I only recently went into detail about the Starkmanir history in my Amar lore video. The goal of this campaign is to take back Arzad and Izara, ultimately renaming Arzad 2 to its original name, Starkman Prime. Not limited to lore of course, the campaign has also been teased to result in the discovery of some hidden knowledge that will point the Republic to phased fields in Minmatar Highsec, where presumably Highsec miners will get access to the Prismaticite ore introduced in the Catalyst expansion. Finally, the Galente Federation will be pursuing Operation Rogue Edge. Now I'm certainly no lover of the Federation, but their campaign sounds very interesting. Somehow they will reduce the amount of jumps from Dodixie to Intaki from 10 to 6 and unlock access to low-waste excavator drones. I know plenty of people in my corp will be celebrating that, as while Rorqual excavators absolutely tear through anomalies, they can only do so very inefficiently compared to the various efficiency trade-offs available with barges and exhumers. This for me is pretty much the highlight of the expansion, although like I said, I'm pretty confused that we're going into this with so much transparency on the end goals. I would have definitely expected some smaller milestones to be public at first, with the gradual introduction of grander objectives further down the line. But of course, for all we know, these objectives might be the beginning of something much larger that we have no idea about. The objectives involved in these military campaigns are designed to be accessible, and we know that there will be options to get involved in Highsec rather than just through typical low-sec faction warfare mechanics. They will also be compatible with a wide variety of playstyles, as we've already seen example objectives including mining ore, destroying hostile ships, hacking data sites, ratting, and of course faction warfare plexing. Pilots will be rewarded for their participation in military campaigns, not only through the progression of the wider Empire's aims, but also in the form of ISK, LP, and standings. At Fanfest, we were shown a large number of available objectives at any given time, but it was made clear that they will typically be time limited and released in stages. So one day mining and exploration might be the Empire's top priority, the next ratting, then PvP, and so on and so forth. I like this idea, as I think having the same massive array of objectives available at all times could lead to a bit of burnout over FOMO, and with this method, Capsuleers will be encouraged to take a break from the military campaigns to engage with EVE's other myriad activities. Fenris's refocusing of the game onto the conflicts of the four empires feels great to me. To be completely honest, I found the Deathless and Drifter content we've been seeing for a while pretty uninteresting overall. The introduction of new factions and the fleshing out of more mysterious powers in the galaxy is welcome in many ways, but it has come majorly to the detriment of those factions that we see most prominently across New Eden, and that many Capsuleers declare deep and long-lasting loyalty to. As a part of this refocusing on the empires, faction warfare will also be getting some direct changes to spice up the plex capturing action with the introduction of some new complexes. We will be seeing the moderate size plex, which provides bonuses to battle cruisers, the contested research relays that will welcome T3Ds with 396 possible combinations of randomized buffs to keep things new and interesting every time, as well as some solo T1 frigate scout complexes with warp disrupting NPCs, presumably designed to force commitment rather than people warping off the second they see an adversary on D-scan. In an attempt to mitigate the evergreen seagulling complaints, you can expect to see some changes to the faction warfare battlefield sites, which will now prioritize rewarding participants with valuable lootable items rather than the LP payout to everyone present in the site when it's completed. Next up on the various announcements from Fanfest is the introduction of titles and achievements. This seems like a slam dunk honestly, and I'm so glad to see this finally. For anyone who's been playing for a few years, it feels like the activity tracker was originally intended to go along similar lines, but it was famously quite broken and ultimately removed from the game in late 2024. As long as Fenris makes an effort to keep a big pool of available achievements aimed at all kinds of playstyles and with varying difficulties, I can see people really enjoying this feature. Completing achievements will reward capsuleers with SP and achievement points, as well as titles which can be displayed in your pilot profile. We've been told this will show in chat windows, station guest lists, and in your show info window, but the exact appearance of this could definitely make or break their popularity. For anyone worried though, you will be able to switch these off if you prefer. Something I really didn't see much time dedicated to, but I am really excited for, is the introduction of a new epic arc. With this, capsuleers will be able to play through simulations of each empire's most definitive battles and historical conflicts, marking a massive increase in the availability of EVE lore that doesn't require you to read a novel on the EVE Universe lore website. It was even mentioned that the eventual goal of this kind of content is to push back the point at which new players decide which faction they want to join, so that it can be made at a time when they have more familiarity with what each empire represents. That part is not set for this expansion and it's more likely to come way down the line, but I think that would be a massive improvement in the new player experience. I remember when I started playing EVE, I picked Caldari, and have done so for all my subsequent characters. Not because I actually knew anything about the faction at that time, but because they gave off massive main character energy, and I just figured that would be the way to go for an easier ride. Speaking of new players, we already knew this was coming, but along with the release of the Cradle of War expansion, we will also see the introduction of Exordium, EVE Online's brand new player area. I've been pretty outspoken about how beneficial it would be for EVE to have a more sandboxy tutorial setting that allows capsuleers to experience actual EVE gameplay in a more controlled environment, rather than having to immediately be at risk of griefing and such harsh punishment for mistakes that they don't yet even understand. Exordium will consist of 53 systems with a central neutral space operated by Concord and Air, with 4 surrounding embassy constellations, a bit like spokes on a wheel, each operated by one of the 4 major factions. Within these constellations will be shipcasters, allowing new players to dive directly into faction warfare from the starter area if they wish. This could be really powerful if faction warfare is tutorialized well in the new player experience, which would make sense given Fenris's new focus on this content. I am a little worried though that if not pulled off quite right, this could lead to a very defeated early game experience for new players immediately dropping into an area of the game with very solved meta fits and competitive piloting. Players will also have an option to exit through the much safer route out to Ulai, crucially with the option to come and go whenever they choose. I'm a big fan of this. I remember helping new players join the game as a mentoring experience, and it can be kind of challenging already, given how far apart some players are likely to start if they choose different factions. With this new region, players joining together will be close and more protected from getting overly punished in the first few hours, while experienced mentors will still be free to access the region to help guide their friends through the magical experience of discovering EVE Online. To ensure that players don't just turn this into another regular region of New Eden, the developers have been clear that the money-making opportunities in this space will be minimal. Lots of different activities will be represented, with access to exploration, mining, ratting, home fronts, missions, freelance jobs, and industry, but presumably some adjustments are going to be made to the payouts to ensure that these serve as a training ground rather than more space for high-sec players to do normal PvE. Not to be seen releasing a major expansion without the introduction of at least a couple of new ships, we'll be seeing the arrival of 4 new Navy destroyers, the Dragoon, Corax, Algos and Telwar Navy issues, as well as an introduction to the capital ship ecosystem with a brand new set of Tech 2 command carriers, the Salvation, Simurgh, Gaia and Ymir. To be completely honest, I've never been someone who's massively hyped by new ships, but I know for a lot of you it's what you're waiting to see every update. Far from the first set of Navy destroyers, I don't think we're likely to see any monumental changes in meta as a result of their introduction, but I definitely look forward to trying them out in faction warfare. The command carriers, on the other hand, maybe this might be a bit of a controversial take, but I think we'll probably just see these end up in a similar place as the Tech 2 Lancer Dreadnoughts. The command carriers are likely to be a lot cheaper than the T2 Dreads, but simply by being less nimble than their subcapital command destroyer and battlecruiser counterparts, I don't think these will be a very common sight. Sure, in a large capital fight, their vastly superior boosts will make sense as an alternative to subcapital command ships, but we'll have to wait and see how commonly these are deployed. One thing they do have that's worth mentioning is a massive boost to conduit jump capacity, which might prove helpful in the near future based on something else from Fanfest which I think deserves mentioning, as it's also generated a lot of buzz on Reddit recently too. The developers told us to expect major changes to Ansiblexes and projection in general later this year in the scheduled September major update. This likely comes as the result of a community-driven proposal submitted to Fenris recently regarding problems and a few suggested solutions for how Ansiblexes are currently affecting the grand strategy of nullsec. I've included a link to the proposal in the description below, and if you look closely you will find my name on it. I know that Ansiblexes can be a very divisive topic, so please don't assume that just because I put my name to this proposal, I haven't considered your opinion. Trust me, it's something I've thought about a lot. That being said, I highly recommend going and giving it a look, and if you have any constructive thoughts about it, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comments. I emphasize constructive though, let's not get into a food fight when we all ultimately just want what's best for the game. Maybe if there's some interest, I can do a video going into the proposal, the parts I wholeheartedly agree with, the parts I am not so sure on, and why I and many others ultimately went on to sign it. I hope this summary helped some of you who've maybe not been able to keep up with Fanfest so far. In case you want some more in-depth info, the VODs are available on Fenris Creations' Twitch channel, and invariably a lot of the content ends up more cut up and edited on YouTube eventually. But if there's anything from Fanfest and the upcoming patch you'd like me to talk about in more detail, I'm easy to reach in-game, and you're always welcome to send an email to Bill Paid. If you want to help support the channel, consider buying your next EVE Online pack, subscription, or Plex from marqueedragon.com using the link in the video description. Use coupon code BILL at checkout for 3% off your order. I've also got YouTube membership enabled now, it's 99 cents, and for that you'll get access to my monthly video where I go through some of the interesting comments for each month, more of an unscripted rant if I'm honest, and I'm sure I'll have more casual unscripted content available for members too, as and when the mood arises. I really appreciate everyone that already signed up, as it's all helped me invest in the software and hardware I need to keep making better videos.